Hello and welcome to the Varietal show. If you've never been here before, well, maybe watch a different episode because this one's going to be on the lazier side because this is effectively my birthday show. I started the channel 3 years ago on my birthday. And of course, obviously, therefore, it doesn't line up exactly year over year. My birthday is actually on Monday. But this is the last stream before then, and so therefore it's my birthday stream, which means I'll do what I want. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe you'll enjoy it. What we're actually doing is a game I've done before called Swamp Witch Troll Witches? Yeah, Swamp Troll Witches. I get those words mixed up. It's a game I really liked, and I always wanted to come back to, and it's been almost a year since I played it. Because that's what we do. On the Varietal show here, what we'll do is we'll do a write-along. And what that is I'm using a solo tabletop RPG to come up with prompts. But also, if you're watching this live, you should join down in the stream because that's the other place where I get sort of ideas and influences. People give me, this should be that way, or that thing should look this way, or what can you put in my cat in this story? All things I've done. And then we try to work it in. And then after about an hour or two, we read back what we've written, which is usually a fairly complete first draft of a short story. But sometimes it's nonsense and half done, and we never play that game again. But this was one we enjoyed, and so I wanted to come back to it, so I'm using this as an excuse. As far as the channel itself, the channel started with an episode of me. At the time, I was doing more episodes with other people, other writer friends of mine. The only reason I don't really do that anymore is it was so hard to organize, and it was obvious that they wanted to do something else. They're less strange. So I for the most part I've just been on my own here. But with that said, the first show had Dana Mahana and Avalon Bourne, and we wrote a story about leaving Elon Musk on Mars, I think was the gist of it. But anyways, I haven't talked to Dana in a while, but I do talk to Avalon fairly regularly, and when I actually get my life sorted out, which has been the theme of the last year, I plan to run Big Van Book Club again. For those who are new to the channel, you would have never seen it. But it's where we read a certain set of chapters of some usually friends of mine, but not exclusively, of Vancouver-based writers. And then we would come back each week and, talk about a chunk of it on here, and people would talk in the live chat. It was fun. It was niche. It was small, but it was fun. And then I just didn't have time and energy for it. But I hope for that to come back, and that's something I do with Avalon. Anyways, that's just the gist of it. I'm being indulgent. I talked about my channel for a minute. Let's get back to being an entertainer and talk to the chat. I see in the chat we have Witchery. It's good to see you again, Witchery. Jumpstore and Uncle Kitty. I hope your computer holds up this time. Tammy, it's good to see you. Thank you for watching. Zombie Wolf says, looking forward to the anniversary stream. Well, don't expect much. It's pretty much just a stream. I haven't been with the channel the whole time. I don't think anybody has, except for maybe me. But I'm happy to be here now. Well, I'm glad to hear that. GS says, good evening and happy 3rd anniversary, Rory. Thank you very much. Tammy says, happy anniversary, Rory. Happy to be a part of it. It's a wonderful stream. I really enjoy it. I'm glad that people enjoy it. That is the goal, to be clear. This is not exclusively a vanity project. I am at my core an entertainer. Witchery says, yeah, it's a lovely place to have found. Hope we are here for both a good and a long time. Well, that's very kind of you guys to say. I don't really understand what changed, by the way. This has been a very unusual year for this channel. We always had people drift in and out, usually would come for a couple of months. And then just a few months ago, like 7 of you showed up. I don't know why. And then you stuck around, and I don't know why, but I appreciate it. And it's been fun to get to know you. Uncle Kitty says, happy anniversary and cake day to Rory. Thank you very much, Uncle Kitty. Tammy adds, happy birthday. Hope you have a wonderful day. I think I'm old enough that birthdays are less fun now, but I'll do my best. Jumpstore says, I don't think I'm familiar with this game, but I'm looking forward to it. It reminds me a lot, if you play video games, it reminds me of Witchwood, which is one of my favorite video games. Witcher says, other people aren't real. There is only Rory in chat. I'm sure Elon Musk would be happy to be stuck on Mars. It is his home planet after all. No, there's not enough people fawning over him there. I learned of you through Hubert. Oh, good. Yeah, Jurgen was... Can I just, for a moment, say that Mastodon is great? I realize not all of you are on Mastodon, but here's a contrast, because the complaint about Mastodon is that it's smaller and less active than other feeds. But I went from being on Twitter and so on, which I no longer post on, over to Mastodon, and like within a month, had met more people of common interest than I ever did in 10 years at Twitter. And there was so much of it was what we would call sort of click-through, where people see the show's advertisements or whatever else and click through on it because they were looking for stuff like this and they enjoyed it, as opposed to an algorithm just sort of guessing based on what you got mad at last week, whether this might be something you're interested in. Witcher says, no, but for real, I found you on the site with the elephants. Yeah, absolutely. It was a real change. Yeah, I agree with that, Witchery. But yeah, Jumpstore says, I came across you through a YouTube recommendation. Well, there you go. For once in my goddamn life, YouTube worked. All right. Well, that's enough fawning over myself and my accomplishments. Let's do a thing that's entertaining. Why don't we? This part of the show is called Lit Games. By the way, if you want to jump to the end and hear the story we wrote or anything and you're not watching live, there will be, down in the description below, timestamps that take you to wherever you want to go. Lit Games stands for Literature Games, which is the core of the show. And what we do is what I call a write-along. In other words, we write something together as a little community here using prompts from a game. And the game that we are using prompts from, as I mentioned earlier, is really zoomed in. So let me zoom it out for a second. Okay, there we go. Is Swamp Troll Witches. Swamp Troll Witches is a I don't think I can get this anymore centered. Does anyone care but me? Zombie Wolf says, wow, I don't think I've ever heard Rory curse before. I curse a lot. I just don't curse on the channel much. Well, this video certainly isn't getting monetized. Yeah, no, that'll do it. Damn. Swamp Troll Witches is it's one of those ones that can be a solo tabletop RPG. It can also be a group one. They do have the mechanics are flexible enough. I'm not going to go too deep into the mechanics. If I have one complaint about Swamp Troll Witches, is that no matter how many times I read its rules, there's always like some caveat or addition that I missed and I forget. I feel like it could do with just a little bit less rules, or maybe it's the association of the words. Some of the words don't feel intuitive to me for what the rule they represent is. But whatever, it's a minor complaint, but as a result, I'm probably going to at some point play this game wrong. And I apologize if you're a super fan of the game and you're like, my god, that's not the rules. Or a creator of the game. I'm going to use my character from before for this, and to remind you folks what that is, I'm going to read out to you for a couple of minutes. As a reminder, if you don't want to be read at and you're not watching live, you can just click on the timestamp that'll take you to when we start writing. But I'm going to do that because we're going to use my character Rorgor for this. But the gist of it is you roll... Sorry, just looking for a good... There we go. You roll 3d6, which if you're not a dice nerd, is just what you would probably think of as regular dice. GS says, and the Rory drew the troll, correct? The one on the icon on the page, on the YouTube icon, yes, I drew. I'm not a visual artist, so take that. I mean, it's as messy as it is because that's the best I can do. But anyways, you need 3d6, and what you do is you roll for them. And the first one you roll is going to associate to something about the situation you're in. The second one you roll is going to associate you, so on and so forth. And it works on that system that you see in Blades of the Dark, where 1 to 2 is like a failure, 3 to 4 is mixed success, and then 5 to 6 is success. Because of course in most games you want a little bit more lean towards the player's success. Not all games though. Anyways, the game itself, we'll just sort of play it and you'll see how it works. But the gist is you're collecting ingredients in swamps as a little troll witch to make potions. That's the gist of it, which is basically the premise of Witchwood, which is why I compared it to the earlier in the stream to the computer game Witchwood. Right. So, if you have any questions about the game, I mean, I never actually offer this, but you're always welcome to. I can tell you about the game. I do think it's worth buying. I do think it's a fun game. The way that you play with other people, very briefly, is you set up sort of individual instances of being your own swamp troll witch in your own area. And then you do this game. You can do it with a friend or not. But if you do it separately, you send each other letters about your day. And that's the context for the solo journaling. Which is a thing I'd be happy to do, by the way, if you guys are on Mastodon or something. We could have a little chain of your various swamp troll witches and the stories of your day. If you were so inclined, but you don't have to. Zombie Wolf said, I recently took up drawing and saw videos of people who drew once a day for 100 days and saw how much better the pictures looked after all that practice and encouraged me to try. Exactly. It's not that talent is completely irrelevant, like there is such a thing as a natural propensity for things, but overall talent is overrated. You want to get good at something, you just do it. Okay. See what I mean? I'm all over the place. This is a mess of a stream so far. Here's what I'm gonna do. This playthrough is called It's My Birthday. And I'll ramble if I want to. Another swamp troll witch playthrough. And then I'm going to read to you a little bit about my world. So, I don't have this posted up. I did post it in. It was just way too much text to look at. I'm going to read this. It's probably going to take me about 6 or 7 minutes. So if you guys do not care or do remember from the last one, you can. Or if you don't want to listen to the world building element of this that I've already done ahead of time, you can skip ahead if you're not watching this live. The swamp. So the game asks you to describe the swamp, your character, your house in the swamp, and a little bit about the night market where you sell your potions. Tendervale Swamp is a natural bog downstream of the old Windigoo Brewery, which makes the palest of ales and pours the spare in the river. This disposal process at the brewery has caused the whole swamp to smell of fresh yeasty bread. Also, the ale in the river, as mixed with the soil, makes a fizzy mud that tickles the feet. Rorgor, my character, not my most inventive name, but I'm not really good at names, has contributed his share of queerness to this bog as well. His clumsy and careless handling of magical potions has seeped into the roots of many things here. It's said you might find some foamy yeast puddles that'll shout you out should you step on them. Others report berries that grant sweet nectar only if you kiss them on their big cranberry lips. Some even say Rorgor poured an embiggening potion on his mushroom garden, thinking it was just some rainwater, and created a whole strain of gigantic speckled mushrooms. The locals have also left their mark on the swamp. The local youth were drawn to the bog for its chance of having lost barrels of ales, collecting in the swamp's swirling pools after floating down from the brewery. These young folks often traveled in clothes whose pockets were laden with dried plants and fungus. Drunk as they get, they'd stumble and they stumbled and spilled out much of that flora from their pockets. All those good herbs and things have now taken root in the mucky muck of Tendervale Swamp. Few from the town still trek out into the muck these days, probably for fear of the will-o-wisps. But those plants they left still grow and make a good home in Tendervale. This odd confluence of these unusual circumstances has made for a veritable smorgasbord of the right stuff for a good potion, which is one reason why the potion-making troll Rorgor has made it his home. Rorgor, the full belly, is a smaller troll, for reasons quite unclear. He stands about as high as a normal man's knee, rather than as a heaving mountain, which would be typical of his kin and kind. His hair is a long, proud net that catches the loveliest twigs and dearest critters, most recently a crooning little mole cricket. You can just catch his two lazy eyes popping out from under his hair right above his thick nose, and if the light catches things just right. His feet are hairy and wide, the tops of which rub just slightly at the lowest droops of his jiggly belly. It's unclear if he's ever dressed, but it seems unlikely. No one bothers him about it, though, as nothing untoward is visible from the overhang of his belly and his great mop of hair. His house is a very large barrel under the canopy of an even larger mushroom. He has a rope strung around a pulley inside his barrel that runs around outside and knots through his cork door. He pulls this rope to pop open his cork door in the morning. Of course, his whole house rolls, for it is a barrel with no foundation but the surface of a boggy pool. So he must make sure the cork door is above the water line before he pops it. He has misjudged this before. However, as an added layer of security at night, he can submerge his cork door. He also has a hammock strung up out back for his lazy days, which are numerous. The night market is a raft rowed by a tenacious kobold named Hoo-Hoo. The raft pulls up to several stops along the river shore once a week, most typically on Sundays at 1 a.m. The raft floats up and down the river, picking up the many peculiar potion makers that populate the numerous swamps dotted along its banks. Hoo-Hoo, the kobold, is rumored to run this raft market so he can get the best bargains on potions. It's said he fills his sack with the potions so that he can trade them with children and elderly and the infirm for funny stories, inspiration for pranks, and the shiniest of rocks. When the market is done, he drops everyone back off to their solitary swamps and I don't know what I meant to say there, but I think carries off to cause his beneficent mischief the rest of the week. Why would a berry have lips? Because Rorgor did not keep track of his magical potions and poured them into the soil. As it says here, Rorgor has contributed his share of queerness to this blog as well. His clumsiness and careless handling of magical potions has caused them to seep into the roots of many things here. He's lazy, disorganized, and so on. So that's Rorgor. If you've been with us since May, then you will have met Rorgor before. If you haven't, he's the icon for this chat, this show. But I have the uncolored original drawing here as well, if you want to. There's also his house here, which is a little hard to interpret, I think, in this context. All right. So there's a whole character sheet and everything. I'm not going to involve you guys in redoing that. The first thing we do, if I remember correctly, is we need to figure out what potions we want to make. Okay. Just going to double check here. I don't think we're going to get to any of the potion making or anything, but maybe we will. Yeah. Pretty sure we roll to make a potion. At the start of the day, choose 3 potions the troll witch intends to collect ingredients for. Okay. I don't know why I didn't trust my memory on that, but that's the truth. So, we're not going to get to 3 potions, but we're going to roll 3 times anyways. So the way this works, if you've ever played the Alien RPG or anything like that, this is not going to be news to you, or really any D6-centric RPG. But if you haven't, this is a D66 chart, but it doesn't require you to have a 66-sided dice. The way it works is you roll 2d6, and then each of those is a number in sequence. So as a result, a D66 chart doesn't have every number. It starts at 11 for reasons that they're not obvious to you. They will be after you think about it for a minute. You roll the 2 D6s, which I'm going to do now. And if you go, well, is this a 43 or a 34? It doesn't matter because these are just prompts. So you pick one. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is roll on this chart 3 times, and then we're going to try and find ingredients to make those potions. Because these are the potions. So a 43 is for curing coughing, and a 34 is creativity potion. Sure, let's do the creativity potion. If you guys want to give these potions a different name, that's fine too, as long as it's, it's going to be the same thing, but if you want to give it a fancy name, put it down. Okay, 53 is cold resistance. And last roll. That was a 43 again. Re-rolling. A magnetism potion, or a dream potion, but I like the magnetism. I could use some cold resistance right about now. How ironic. I was born with cold resistance. I'm never cold. The do you guys want to give these more playful names? If that's the case, let me know. All right. Now I think there is a more specific way of going about this, but I am of the opinion that we should just roll for the ingredients we're looking for now, because I think it simplifies the workflow. So we're looking for an ingredient for each of those potions, basically. Which means I'm going to roll this 3 more times. Witchery says Rory is too hot to handle. That's right. You can tell what a wild child I am. Zombie Wolf says, I'm Sicilian. I break down in weather below 70 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius, and I don't know what it is outside of Celsius. But I think you guys freezing is like 34 degrees. I can wear a t-shirt at 34. Beaver twigs. So creativity potion. We almost have everything we need, but we are missing beaver twigs. Cold resistance. Let's see what we need for that. Whoops. 56 or 65. 56 is green salt and 65 is summer mint. I like both of those. So, hey chat, which one do you prefer? Summer mint or green salt? By the way, today's tea, as if I drink tea every stream, I don't. I do drink a lot of tea, though. Today's tea is a black tea with black currants. It doesn't really have the sweetness of a black currant, but it has all the floral quality of a black currant. It's kind of like the way that bergamot is in Earl Grey. It's good. 21 degrees Celsius? Zombie wolf. You get cold at 21 degrees? That's nuts. Summer mint or green salt? Jumpstore says, that tea sounds lovely, Rory. Yeah, it is good. It's a local place called Murchie's. Well, I don't know how local it is, but I haven't seen it talk of it elsewhere. I think it might be English, if I recall. It's either English or it's local. I cannot remember. All right. Not seeing any... Oh, there we go. Summer mint. Okay, cold resistance. We need some summer mint. I think that's appropriate. And then for the magnetism potion, we need... I got a 2 and a 3, so 23 or 32. 23 is Niggle Cress. Don't like that. 32 is Goblin's Balm. So, Goblin's Balm it is. Okay. So now we have our shopping list, you know. We're going out to make, to find stuff to make these 3 potions. So... there is a bunch of stuff that comes with exploration that I'm gonna kind of skip over because I think I did this in the other stream too. I'm not sure how much it adds. But there's things like, okay, well, one thing I can't really skip over though is the first die we roll tells us if any ingredients are present at all. So I'm gonna roll this. And I've rolled a 2, which means no ingredients are present. The next die I roll is the problems, and it gives us the ranking of the problem we encounter, which is a 6. This is a terrible set of rolls, because 6... oh no, a 6 is a minor problem. Never mind, I had it reversed. And the third die is the conditions, which is a little confusing, so I'll explain it. I'll roll it. It's a 4, which means it's neutral conditions, which means nothing is affected. If it's unfavorable conditions, and it's up to us to decide what that would be, maybe heavy rain or something like that, then whatever score we got on getting ingredients gets a -1. And if we were in favorable conditions, whatever score we got on getting ingredients gets a +1, but on neutral, it's a +0. So we don't find an ingredient, we do encounter a minor problem, and the conditions are neutral. So now we have those worked out. Now we have to figure out the problem and how to fix it. Now... if I recall correctly, there is a minor problems chart. Yes. Okay. So we rolled a 2, or a 6 rather. That means we have minor problems. So what I do is I roll the 2d6 again. And we see what that problem is. 32, uncontrollable giggling, or 23, grumpy snake. Which one do we prefer? Chat, and feel free to add in some details, and we'll get to the writing. Jumpstore says, I think Zombie just has summer on her mind. That being said, I just like mint, so I would have picked summer mint as well. I think it makes sense if you're making something for cold resistance to have a plant to do with summer. Grumpy snake. Okay, grumpy snake it is. So, guys, what is that snake grumpy about? Rorgor intended to get up at sunrise and get to his collecting with ample daylight left. However, the prior evening he had he drank a bit too much of the fizzy mud and spent the evening dancing until the dawn. Just as I used to be sent away from the dinner table for uncontrollable giggling. Well, that's sad. Giggling is great. This was a typical mistake, and one that meant Rorgor left in a rush. It was late into the afternoon. The sun was wandering off into the horizon and leaving longer shadows. But a flustered little mound of mossy hair. When? Not but. Could be heard cursing the slippery mud of Tendervale Swamp. Zombie Wolf says the sun was wandering off into the horizon as the sun is wont to do. Indeed. It is not known the exact length. Tell me more about this snake, chat. What's their problem? They're grumpy, obviously. But how are they getting in the way of me collecting stuff? It is not known the exact length of Rorgor's legs. But an estimation says that they could not be longer than a foot under his skirt of belly. Nor could it be said for certain if the little troll even had knees for how he hobbled about, did little to reassure one he did. Uncle Kitty says they want a toll in mice. Oh, good one. And Zombie Wolf picking up on the same idea. I want demands a fee for foraging on its territory. I like this. I can work with this. Nonetheless, Rorgor started most days this way. Though if you asked him, he'd insist this was unusual. To his mind, he was a responsible and hard-working fellow. Delusions, of course, but sincere ones at that. Nonetheless, he could get his ingredients. Were there no troubles to stop him? But there are always troubles. And the trouble that day uncoiled from a crooked branch over the swampy path. And startled poor Rorgor. Back onto his cheeks. What are some features of the snake? Physical or otherwise? I don't really know what kind of snakes are in swamps. I mean, I hadn't imagined, I guess I do, but I hadn't really imagined this to be like an Amazonian swamp. Job Story, yes, I do watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I haven't watched probably the last 3 seasons, but I watched everyone up to that point. Very funny. The unwelcome hurdle was a long, shiny... What the hell was that? Cottonmouths and copperheads. Now I know cottonmouths. I don't think I know copperheads. Let me look that up. They kind of look like a python. Are cottonheads venomous? Uncle Kitty says copperheads rather are bad news. Zombie Wolf says rat snakes like the water. I don't think I know a rat snake, do I? Oh, it's a little thing. I like the aesthetics of the rat snake. Uncle Kitty says venomous and very aggressive, terrifying. I think I'll go with a rat snake just because it's a bit easier for me to describe because it's just black. Yeah, it is weird, Uncle Kitty, because generally things that are really venomous are not very aggressive. Unintuitively, that's often how it works. But there are sometimes things, like I don't know if people know, I mean, I guess arachnophobia warning, I'm not showing them. But if people know Brazilian wandering spiders, which are Amazonian spiders, but sometimes come in on bananas, they are like the only spider in the world that has been known to chase people. That's not a joke. I'm kind of arachnophobic, a bit, not a lot. And they also are extraordinarily venomous. Anyways, I'm going to go with a rat snake because it scares me less. I'm not really scared of snake. We do have a snake. It's a python, but it's also easier to describe. Was a rat snake. Well, was a long, sleek rat snake as black as swamp water in the moonlight? Yeah, that's the real thing. They used to come inside in the winter, says Uncle Kitty. Yeah, I bet they did. Even our snake, which is just a constrictor, is terrifying. Uncle Kitty says they would chase you. In Canada, in the area of Canada I'm in, we only really have 2 venomous things, and they're pretty rare. One is rattlesnakes, but we don't really get those in Vancouver. You get those if you go far enough east. In British Columbia. And then the other, and this is also you have to go kind of east for, is black widows. And very rarely, sometimes in our basements, we get brown recluses. But I've yet to see one in the wild. I just know it happens. Oh, good idea, GS. Grumpy Snake is grumpy because everyone forgot his birthday. We could say that that toll is really just him trying to get gifts. I'll leave that to you, Zombie Wolf. Something tells me it wouldn't be popular. The unwelcome hurdle was a long, sleek rat snake, as black as swamp water in the moonlight. Well, if it's his birthday, then Rorgor will know its name. What's the name of the snake? Man, I'm going slow today. We're not going to get much done. What's the name of the snake? Slithers? Mr. Slithers? That's the laziest name I've ever come up with. Nero, because he's narcissistic about his birthday. Hissy Fit. Oh man, there's some good names. I think I'm going to stick with Hissy Fit. I do like the Nero idea, Zombie Wolf, but I feel like it's too cultured for the tone I'm going for here, which is kind of silly. But that is a very good idea. You should name a snake character Nero. I'm going to go with Hissy Fit. Rory knew this snake as Hissy Fit. A local pariah to the swamp. Prone. He was prone to outbursts and earned himself his name with them. Actually, yeah, I can work them both in then, because maybe he calls himself Nero, but everyone calls him Hissy Fit. That works. He was prone to outbursts and earned himself his name through them? With them? Not really sure. It's not a great sentence. I'm not forming the best sentences tonight. And that's okay. We push on. Now. Oh, Hissy Fit. I haven't the time for your troubling today. Rorgor grumped to the dangling snake. With a hiss and a snap, a fly's width from Rogor's plump nose. His first and last name, Nero Hissyfit. It does have a flow to it. The snake said, "Don't sass me, little troll. Don't call me Hissy Fit. You know my name is..." The snake curled up with eyes towards the sky in a prideful silhouette. Does that make sense? Nero, king of the swamp. The swamp ain't got no king, and I think you earned the name Hissy Fit. Just well enough more than Nero. Rorgor grumbled back. He wasn't fond of conflict, but he also was even less fond of self-restraint. Zombie Wolf says self-proclaimed, no doubt, lol. Okay. We're getting to the point where I gotta do something here, so... problem solving. The gist is, in the problem solving phase, you can do things in any order except for fighting. Fighting is your last option every time, and you don't have to fight. You can replace fighting with the other two options. So the first option is talking. The second option is doing an action, which can't be fighting. Doing an action can be replaced with talking. The third option is fighting, but it can also be replaced by doing another action or talking more. And the way it works is this. We roll a d6. We attempt to solve the problem. In order to solve the problem, we need to state what we're going to do, but that doesn't matter here. It's a solo game. And then we need to roll at least 2d6, which is mostly what I'm going to do here. So I'll just show you. I'll roll the dice and show you. Okay. So our first dice is a 4, which is a success. 1 to 3 is a failure. 4 to 6 is a success. And our second dice is for the wrinkle, which is a 2, which means there's a negative side effect to this success. Now, because we rolled early on to see if it was a minor problem, which it was, we need 2 successes, and then the problem's solved. And if we had rolled successfully to get ingredients, then we would collect our ingredients at that point, but we didn't successfully get ingredients. We have to keep rolling until we get 2 successes. As we start to fail, instead of damage, what you start to take is botherances. And if you accumulate more than, I think, a dozen botherances, 12, you have to give up collecting stuff for that day, go home, and spend the rest of the day resting because you're just so annoyed. It is a game about being lazy. So that means I'm going to have this snake make his proposal here. And we are going to use talking to start to persuade him to let us go through. And then we will roll again. And at that point, we'll have the choice between doing an action and talking. And we'll see if it succeeds. Okay, so... Well, I shall not let thee pass into my domain. No, not someone so disrespectful. Hissy fit said, dropping into the road and snapping at Rorgor to scare him back. Rorgor wasn't about to fight a snake, but still responded, Well, I have no doubt your bite was smart. My plump belly. I know you have no venom. And you are hardly long enough to bind me well. So perhaps, so your threats are no threats at all, little snake. Rorgor folded his stubby arms and let them rest on the long whiskers draped from his chin. Nero is displeased that the little troll is so uncouth. The snake said, winding back and forth over the damp, silty trail. But one must expect such insolence. Yeah, that's what I thought. What did I do wrong? Oh. Of course Nero would refer to himself in the third person. Yeah. I think I'm just making it like Nero now. From the lower classes of the swamp. So I shall show patience. Only a noble snake could muster. You say you need to pass? Then you must right what is wrong on this most special day. Rorgor had a momentary thought that if he had risen with the sun, he likely would not be in this predicament. However, this reflection felt too much like the sting of responsibility that he shuddered his mind to it and reassured himself that this was in no way his fault. Reassured of his success. Reassured of his choices. How about that? Rorgor carried on. Took the bait, I suppose. The snake was leaving. For whatever request was coming, surely was better than mud wrestling an arrogant snake. And how would I appease you then? He said. Whoop. So he's obviously going to want a gift. And I'm not totally opposed to it being a rat, but I do feel like if we're going to deal with sentient animals, it's a little grim. What is something else we could bring him? I realize that's all snakes eat, so it probably can't be food. What else would Nero the arrogant snake, prone to hissy fits, want? A crown? Maybe we got to make him a crown. Maybe he's like, I've lost my crown, and I must have another. Should anyone think I'm faint-hearted or whatever, just to be clear, we have a snake, and we feed it, admittedly frozen rats, but that you thaw out and whatever. But Zombie Wolf says, yes, the crown. Okay. I'm going to write out him making this deal, and while I do that, chat, I want you to think about what Rorgor is going to do to make a crown. And when we do that, I will roll to see if it's successful. But let's think about Rorgor's strategy. Keeping in mind, he's very lazy. Does not take responsibility for anything. And is very lazy. Tis my day of birthing, and yet, despite my remarkable accomplishments in ruling Tendervale Swamp, I am no more discernible to a commoner's eye from any other rat snake in this swamp. Hissy Fit was once again arcing towards the sky with a puff of pride. Filling its pale belly. Thus, and I am sure one of nominal intelligence, such as yourself, would need no such clarification at this point. But lest I have misjudged a moron as merely an idiot, I require a crown, dear peasant. Uncle Kitty says, is it true that bathing in oatmeal helps with poison ivy? Oatmeal is anti-inflammatory, so in a sense it works, but I personally just use hydrocortisone cream. It works faster and more effectively, in my opinion. I wonder if it's good at pulling the oil off, too. I don't know. Like, that's an advantage to sort of any starchy thing, right? Let's go to this one. Just changing the music really quick. Lest I have misjudged a moron as merely an idiot, I require a crown, dear present. Make me one, so the world can know my splendor by sight alone. I've grown to like this snake. It's charmed me. Here's my fun trivia fact. It's not fun at all, but here's my trivia fact about oatmeal. Oatmeal is often cross-contaminated with flour, even if it doesn't list it. So much so that for a long time it was listed as a thing to avoid as a celiac. But they've recently, because it's actually quite difficult to make something like oatmeal consistently not contaminated, because of it starts from being pulled out of the earth. Is when it can start being contaminated. Anyways, that said, that aside, oatmeal does have a chemical in it that for some people, for reasons we do not know, reacts the same as gluten. Zombie Wolf says that's what narcissists do, Rory. They find a way to charm you. Oh, I know narcissists. I have known many a narcissist. I'm lucky to have not been deeply scarred by one, because if you're not deeply scarred by one, when you meet a narcissist, they're hilarious. They are just completely oblivious to the world around them. Makes them very easy to like mess with if you're not willing to like get into fights with them or whatever. But on the whole, I hope to never meet another one again. What a waste of space they are. GS says, yikes, Uncle Kitty. To Uncle Kitty saying, I used to hate poison ivy. The yard at my old place was rife with it. We weren't ever rife with it, but it showed up. It was almost worse because it showed up at random near riverbeds around our places or riversides. So sometimes as a kid, you'd just be playing around and then suddenly you would realize you've run through a bunch of poison ivy. Make me one so the world can know my splendor by sight alone. A crown? Alright. Rorgor said. Okay, let's see if we succeed, because we're doing an action. If we succeed on this, then we're done with this. If we're don't, then we're... I don't know. We'll have to figure out what that complication is. I'm going to roll 2d6 again. We didn't succeed. Oh yeah, there was supposed to be a negative side effect to that success. I guess having to make a crown is a negative side effect. Okay, well, we're gonna fail, but it's gonna have a positive side effect? How do we fail to make a crown out of poison ivy, but have a positive side effect? Oh yeah, I just remembered. I have a character sheet for this. And so the way it works, I mean, it's sort of a hand-drawn character sheet here. The way it works is there's a few skills: craftiness, personality, brute force, magic, relaxation, and determination. And then one is a good skill, which you have a +1. One is like a great skill, which you have a +2 or something, high skill. Then you have a weak skill where it's a -1, all to the first dice. And then a bad skill, in this case, he's bad at determination. But then they have a skill where it's high control. And high control means you can rearrange the dice. So you can't change the numbers, but you can rearrange the dice. I have craftiness as high control, and I would say building a crown is a crafty activity. So if I swap the 3 for the 5, because I could rearrange them, then it's a success. But that means that there is no side effect. Now, I'm not going to do that if I'm going to look at chat right now and see good ideas. Then I'll just take their ideas. GS says, make another one out of pyrite. Suits Nero. We made it out of hemlock by mistake, but on the plus side, free foraging from now on. No, I'm not going to kill him. Tammy Morelli said, we had Canadian thistles. They were so hard to get rid of. They multiply like crazy. I hated them. I don't know what a Canadian thistle is because I live in Canada. They're probably just called thistles, I imagine. But that is funny. Zombie Wolf, it is funny. Nero, the Nero references are great. But no. Uncle Kitty says, we didn't poison ourselves. That's true. Okay. Well, then we make him a crown. I know I rolled no side effect, but I want us to have painful hands. I think that would be funny. And it kind of straddles the line with my change in the dice here. Okay. Rorgor was not prepared to put effort into anything. Least of all, GS says pyrite equals fool's gold. Yes, I am aware. Yeah. Rorgor was not prepared to put effort into anything. Least of all, the false crown of an arrogant snake. So, Rorgor waddled just out of sight from the snake guarding the path. Then plucked the first branches he found. Zombie Wolf says, some people put thistles into tea. Uncle Kitty, so I guess they are edible. I just don't know why anyone would choose to eat them. Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess we'd have to try them. I'm sure they're not eating the thorned part. It's probably the heart inside. But also, like, you know, if you live somewhere where there's not a lot to forage, you eat what you can. GS says, let's make it out of poppies and put Grumpy Snake to sleep. Ooh. That's an interesting idea. Okay, here's what I'll do. I can work both of them in. It was only moments of twisting the branches about into a loop. Before the poor little troll realized his hands were burning with welts and sores. The chubby little fool had failed to notice the leaves of 3. At the ends of his chosen twigs. Yes, indeed. Oh, a little snake icon. It's very cute. Yes, indeed. Rorgor, professional forager and brewer of potions, had accidentally tried to make a crown out of poison ivy. That's not how you spell poison. This, of course, was not his fault. He didn't have a ready reason why, but his gut told him that it could have gone no other way. Still, though he pondered passing on the crown anyways, he realized that would just lead Hissy Fit to haunt his every step in a rage. The incident did, however, give him a good idea. For all in the swamp knew that to grant a request of Nero's is to commit to 3 more requests, and then 3 more after that. He was a snake without boundaries and without limits on his needs. Instead, Rorgor trudged out towards the poppies. By the way, I think everybody in my chat knows this, but I found this out quite actually late in life. I think it was in my early 20s. If you go to a field of poppies, proper poppies, and sit there, you will fall asleep because the pollen still has narcotic effects. And it can make people quite sleepy. Which, I'll be honest, sounds kind of fun. To like lie in a field and fall asleep in like a summer day and a bunch of flowers help you sleep, that's great. Instead, Rorgor had trudged out towards the poppies that grew at the edges of Tendervale Swamp, and wound with wincing and moaning about his tortured fingers a crown. There's a better way to phrase this. Zombie Wolf says, Rory, that would explain the effects of opium and heroin. Yeah, but what I'm saying is you don't need to, like, go to that extreme. It's not surprising to me. Like, for example, you don't go into a field of, cocaine plants, and suddenly, you know, feel very vibrant. Like you have to do a bunch of stuff to get it to a point where it works as a drug. But apparently poppies, just the pollen is enough. I mean, you're not like, it's probably not like heroin. What it is just if you hang out in the field, you get quite sleepy. The way I found out about that was I had a teacher of poetry who was an old Englishman. Although not at all the way you would expect an old Englishman to be. And he told a story where they, you know, the English always stopped for tea. They were on a road trip. It was tea time. They stopped. They pulled over to the side of the road. They were supposed to continue on, and they all just fell asleep because they were in a field of poppies when they did it. Tammy says, is talking about the various horror adaptations of things in the public domain and how she is excited for them. So I guess I'm just weird that way. But like that, I mean, I know I'm going to say this every single time, but obviously I have my agendas. I think that is the value of a public domain is like, you know, you take stuff that we know and then various subcultures and niche interests get their time with it and make something interesting to that group. Uncle Kitty says, fun security guard fact. Your number one fear if you're guarding a pot field is / dispensary is bears. Oh, do they like it? Most of it's grown in greenhouses here, so we don't have open fields. Monocrown from them while wincing and moaning about his tortured fingers. They like to eat the plants. Now that's interesting because the psychoactive elements of that plant require heat to activate. Like if you just eat it, it doesn't do anything to humans anyways. I don't know what they're getting from it. They don't take no for an answer. Yeah, but like, I mean, are you really there to guard from a bear? What are you going to do? The bear wins. Uncle Kitty, I believe in you. But not when it comes to you versus a bear. The bear's gonna win. And wound a crown from them while wincing and moaning about his tortured fingers. Oh my! Such lovely tones to my crown. Though I do find the choice of flowers to be distasteful. Said the snake, said to Rorgor, upon receiving his crown. Uncle Kitty, you're out loud firearms in that jobbery. Yeah, I don't know that's going to do much to a bear, though. Well, I mean, it will eventually, but they got a lot of blood to bleed. Unless you just mean you can scare them away by, like, firing in their direction. Your number 2 fear is raccoons, and then robbers. Also, keep in mind, I'm Canadian. Guns are significantly less common here. None of our security guards are going to be armed. The exceptions to being armed on the job are extremely limited. I have heard that it is in the same family as hops. So maybe it's just a tasty plant to them? Zombie Wolf says, Rory, Canada has security guards? Yeah, of course, yeah. The rumors that Canada is like some sort of safe haven against all crime is misleading. It kind of depends on where you are, and yeah. We have all the same problems. Let me be clear. Just some of them are a little more toned down than the United States, and some are worse than you would think. Without getting too deep into it, there's a whole bunch of groups, let's say, in the US that caused a lot of problems over the last 5 or 6 years for you that started in Canada and are still based in Canada. We are not the green haven that we sometimes are seen as. They need the calories, and the crops are calorie dense. I did not know that. All right. Oh my, such lovely tones to my crown, though I do find the choices of flowers to be distasteful. For I am a powerful ruler with an iron will. Rorgor knew better than to respond. After another moment of examination, Jumpstore says, well, in Canada, the robbers would at least probably say sorry, hey, before leaving. You know, honestly, who knows? Maybe. There definitely is a lot of apologizing up here. Very little of it sincere, though. That's another thing. Canada gets a reputation of being nice. I don't think that's true. What we are is a sort of, we have that hangover like British politeness. So we're more polite. And according to people who've moved here, we're more willing to help strangers, like find places or whatever else, which I think is probably true. But I wouldn't say we're nice. We're kind of cold, to be honest. After another moment of examination, the snake finally put his crown on and vamped around the trail with such pomposity, none could mistake him for a mere common rat snake. Uncle Kitty says Minnesota nice. Now, here's the thing about America. There's like coastal cities I can name, and then there's a bowl of oatmeal in the middle, and then there's the South, and that's how much I know. However, I will say someone from that bowl of oatmeal, I just mean that as it's a mix of stuff that I cannot distinguish. I have met people from there, and they do actually kind of remind me of Canadians. The Midwest kind of thing. When I was riding Greyhound bus down to see Coachella in like 2008 or whatever, I remember meeting some people on the bus from all over, but it was my chance to meet a lot of different Americans. And yeah, the Midwest was what I got along with the best. I don't know if Minnesota's the Midwest, I'll be honest. Tammy says, but you're nice, Rory. Well, thank you. I mean, that's not really my call to make. So I appreciate hearing that that's the case. I try to be nice, for sure. Pomposity, none could mistake him for a mere common rat snake. He began, as was expected. Tammy says, so I guess you must be the exception. I wouldn't say that. I just think we have nice people in the same proportion as most other places. I think we get the reputation of being nice because I think people equate manners with being nice, and I don't think that's true. So I think we get a reputation. We also get a reputation of being fairly progressive. And while that's true in a sense, overall, you know, our Overton window isn't as right as some other places. You know, we do have a Democratic Socialist Party that does win seats, for example. We also really aren't, in many significant and severe ways I won't get into on here. So I just think that there is a bit of a glowing image of Canada that is not necessarily accurate. He began as was expected. Issuing further commands to passing birds, croaking frogs, and finally, Rorgor. However, as he talked and bobbed about with his crown, he began to slur and yawn. Until at last he curled up in a spot of sunlight to fall asleep. The poppy crown had done its work. Rorgor rushed on with little light left for foraging and managed. I want to make at least one potion before we wrap up here, so I'm going to cheat this a bit, but I'm going to ask you folks a question. So prepare for a question, incoming question for chat. We had 3 possible potions. I'm going to say we're out of time in the game, almost out of time in the actual stream, but in the game. Of our 3 potions, which one do we actually want to go through the process of making? So we have the creativity potion, the cold resistance potion, and the magnetism potion. Which one do we want to make? I'm just going to say that he finds it before the sun goes down, goes back, and makes it. Because we've never actually done the potion making section of this game. And, by the way, which one do we want to make? And what should be the wacky wild name for it? Because obviously I don't want to call it, like, magnetism potion or whatever. Okay, Uncle Kitty says creativity potion. Okay, which means we're going to find some beaver twigs. Whatever that is. Thoughts in chat if you have an idea about that. But what should we call creativity potion? What's a name for it? I don't know why I said that like mid-90s Pauly Shore. Is that a reference that people get? Don't look it up if you don't. You don't need Pauly Shore in your head if you manage to miss that part of the 90s. Let it be dead. Would you be called a potion? No, it's just in my head. By the way, if you're ever wondering, why did Pauly Shore become famous? His mother ran one of the biggest comedy nightclubs. He's a nepotism kid. That's all there is to it, really. Twigs gnawed on by beavers. Beaver leavings. Beaver twigs are branches chewed by beavers, says Lizzie Rose. Hello, Lizzie. I don't know if I've seen you in the chat before, but if I haven't, welcome to the stream. And if I have, thanks for the recommendation. Maybe willows. How about willows chewed on by beavers? Also, what should we call the creativity potion? Should we call it like liquid muse? Liquid muse? I don't know. Muse cordial. Zombie wolf. Should I ever quit this stream? I'm just giving it to you. You got great ideas. Lizzie Rose says, hi, fan of the folklore. Well, I'm glad. This one obviously is a little bit different than the folklore stream, but we're sort of keeping it in that same vibe with this game. So not a little fantasy creature in a swamp. Rorgor rushed on with little light left for foraging and managed to find the nibbled remains of a grand willow woven into a beaver dam. This was known in his trade. We're actually just getting to the point where we're going to wrap the story up. We're going to do one little mechanical thing, wrap the story up, if you can call it a story, and then we'll read it back, see what we came up with this stream. Zombie Wolf says, oh, that's the nicest thing I've heard all week. Goal. Well, I mean, anybody can start a stream. I think I've demonstrated that roundly. You just have to ignore failure. Inevitable failures. Lizzie Rose says, Elixir of Expression. Man, I like both of them. Those are great names. I'm really bad with names, and everyone in chat is always like, right on it. Makes me feel like I shouldn't be a writer. I realize there's a lot more to be writing than that. There's things I could do well, but in those moments, I'm like, oh, man, why don't I think of stuff like this? This was known in his trade as beaver twigs. An essential ingredient. Jesus, can I spell? An essential ingredient to potions for inspiration. Specifically, he was planning to make a muse cordial. Though, if he could find more summermint tomorrow, he would strengthen the cordial into an elixir of expression. Poets. The poet frogs of Windvale Grove would pay well for an elixir of expression. There we go. We worked them both in. Okay. Now, I've never actually done the potion making. So let's read it together. We'll do that. We'll wrap it up and we'll read the story back. In the potion making phase, the troll witches attempt to brew potions with the ingredients collected during exploration and problem solving. Determine how many potions the troll witches can make based on how many ingredients have been successfully collected. I just said it was one that we needed, so whatever. Roll once for each potion. For a small group, a play or individual play with multiple trolls are collected for a particular potion at the start of the day. Also make a potion making roll to brew that potion. I'm not going to pick apart that right now. To brew a potion, roll 3d6. Modify the roll based on the troll witch's craftiness, skill, proficiency. Okay, so I have high control and craftiness, which means that I can rearrange the dice. Lizzie Rosa says, I find that naming your own character or thing is hard. Other people almost always have better ideas and better at naming other people's characters, for example. I wonder if that's true. It's like a cleaning other people's room thing, right? Like you hate cleaning your own room, but I don't know how this relates, but it related in my head in the moment. Okay, we've got a 3, a 6, and a 1. So I've got the exact spread 3 dices of a d6 could give you. A 1, 3, and a 6. Now, it doesn't matter the order because I can rearrange it with my special character skill of high control and craftiness. So, lost my monitor there for a minute. I thought I might have lost the stream. That means... And the way the 3 dice work is the first die is success. So I guess I'm putting the 6 there. The second die is the quantity. And the third die is the potency. Now, none of these features really matter because unless you're going to play the whole game, because the game is played in like week segments where you go and collect stuff each day. And then at the end of the week, you go on this... this raft there and sell it at a night market on Sunday. And the potency would mean you get more money, but we're not obviously engaging that far along. So I'm going to say we make 3 potions of a weak potency. If you guys have any ideas for like a cute way to any like preparation detail in the potion making of using beaver twigs to make either, in this case, a muse cordial. You let me know if there's anything you want me to add. I'll just sort of follow my heart for a moment to describe the process of making this potion. Back at his barrel on the swamp. Rorgor pulled out the bunch beaver twigs, and placed them into a red hot brazier. Do you have a favorite region of folklore, Lizzie Rose? Like, I'm partial to Norwegian, partially because my ancestors are Norwegian, but I also really like Icelandic for just being absolutely savage. This charred the bark into a soot. He collected with a glass flute over the cooking area. The remains of the twigs were splashed with rainwater and ground down into a paste. With dry millet. Finally, a clean corn liquor was mixed with a reduction of maple sap and set to a, what's the word for it? Just below a boil. There's a term for it in cooking. Uncle Kitty says simmer. There's another term for it, though. Simmer will work. There is a term for it. It's 2 words. Lizzie Rhodes says, I like stuff from all over the world, but I suppose my favorite is Indo-European, specifically Germanic and Celtic. I have German and French ancestry, so it kind of makes sense. True. Jumpstore says, of course, Canadian will find a way to add maple syrup to his liquor. Indeed. Have you ever tried real maple syrup? It's good. It's not as popular in the West, though, because most of the trees that they get it from are in, like, Quebec and Toronto. So you don't see it as much here. It's around, though. It's cheaper here than anywhere else. Rolling boil? Nah, that's above a boil. It's like a bear boil or something like that. I forget what it's called. Anyways, I'm trying to draw on my memory of working for an old French chef, and I can't remember the term. But anyways, set to a simmer. Then a teaspoon of paste and a smear of soot was added to 3 crudely drawn glass beakers. Which were then filled with the sweet liquor. It was a weak concoction. Hardly enough to break more than a stanza in a stuck poet. But it would still sell to the right creature. After this was done, the day was well and truly gone. The cicadas were singing and the stars were glimmering. Rorgor thought once more upon his day, then said to himself, I shall go to bed now early and rise with the dawn so that I can catch up on my work without a rush tomorrow. He then danced and drank until the dawn, assuring himself there was nothing he could do to prevent his sleeping in again anyways. Okay. Let's go back and see what we came up with. Changing the music again. If you're coming to this part of the show, it's because you just want to know what we came up with. And what we did here today on our 3rd anniversary of the channel and on what I call my birthday stream. My birthday is actually on Monday, but this is the last stream before then, so this is my birthday stream. Is because I started the channel on my birthday. We played a game called Swamp Troll Witches, which we've played before about a year ago. And I used the same character here, Rorgor, who is my drawing of him is the icon for this, so you'll know what he looks like. It's a game about collecting ingredients for potions. If you've ever played the video game Witchwood, it is very much like that, but without the storyline. But nonetheless, we came up with a playthrough of it, a second one, called It's My Birthday and I'll Ramble If I Want To, which is about me. Another Swamp Troll Witch playthrough. We had 3 potions we could get. We only ended up making 1. And this is the story of why there was only 1 made. Rorgor intended to get up at sunrise and get to his collecting with ample daylight left. However, the prior evening he drank a bit too much of the fizzy mud and spent the evening dancing until the dawn. This was a typical mistake for him, one that meant Rorgor always left in a rush. For it was late into the afternoon when he awoke. The sun was wandering off into the horizon and leaving longer shadows behind it, and a flustered little mound of mossy hair, our Rorgor, could just be heard cursing the slippery mud of the Tendervale swamp he was trying to scurry through. It is not known the exact length of Rorgor's legs, but an estimation says that they could not be longer than a foot, though none is seen under his skirt of belly. Nor could it be said for certain if the little troll even had knees, for how he hobbled about did little to reassure one he did. Nonetheless, Rorgor started most days this way, though if you asked him, he'd insist this was unusual. To his mind, he was a responsible and hard-working fellow. Delusions, of course, but sincere ones at that. Nonetheless, Rorgor could get his ingredients. Were there no troubles to stop him? That could have been a better form sentence. But there are always troubles. The trouble that day uncoiled from a crooked branch over the swampy trail and startled poor Rorgor back onto his cheeks. The unwelcome hurdle was a long, sleek, rat snake, as black as swamp water in the moonlight. Rorgor knew this snake as Hissyfit, a local pariah to the swamp. He was prone to outbursts and earned himself his name with them. "Oh, Hissyfit, I haven't the time for your troubling today," Rorgor grumped to the dangling snake. With a hiss and a snap, a mere fly's width from Rorgor's plump little nose. The snake said, "Don't sass me, little troll, and don't call me hissy fit. You know my name is..." The snake curled up with eyes towards the sky in a prideful silhouette. "Nero, king of the swamp." "The swamp ain't got no king, and I think you earned the name Hissy Fit just well enough more than Nero," Rorgor grumbled back. He wasn't fond of conflict, but he also was even less fond of self-restraint. "Well, I shall not let thee pass into my domain. No, not someone so disrespectful," Hissyfit said, dropping into the road and snapping at Rorgor to scare him back. Rorgor wasn't about to fight a snake. He was a lazy troll. But still, he responded. "Well, I have no doubt your bite would smart my plump belly. I know you have no venom, and you are hardly long enough to bind me well, so your threats are no threats at all, little snake." Rorgor folded his stubby arms and let them rest on the long whiskers draped from his chin. "Nero is displeased that the little troll is so uncouth," the snake said, winding back and forth over the damp, silty trail. "But one must expect such insolence from the lower classes of the swamp. So I shall sow patience to only a noble snake could muster. You say you need to pass, then you must be right. Then you must right what is wrong on this most special day." Rorgor had a momentary thought that if he had risen with the sun, he likely would not be in this predicament. However, this reflection felt too much like the sting of responsibility, so he shuddered his mind to it, and reassured himself that this was in no way his fault. Reassured of his choices, Rorgor took the bait that the snake was leaving, for whatever request was coming surely was better than mud wrestling an arrogant snake. "And how would I appease you then?" he said. "'Tis my day of birthing, and yet despite my remarkable accomplishments in ruling Tendervale Swamp, I am no more discernible to a commoner's eye from any other rat snake in this swamp." Hissyfit was once again arcing towards the sky with a puff of pride filling its pale belly. "Thus, and I am sure one of nominal intelligence such as yourself would need no such clarification at this point. But lest I have misjudged a moron as merely an idiot, I require a crown. Dear peasant, make me one so the world can know my splendor by sight alone." Crown. All right, Rorgor said, and Rorgor was not prepared to put effort into anything, least of all the false crown of an arrogant snake. So Rorgor just waddled out of sight from the snake guarding the path, then plucked the first branches he found. And it was only moments after twisting the branches into a loop before the poor little troll realized his hands were burning with welts and sores. That chubby little fool had failed to notice the leaves of 3 at the ends of his chosen twigs. Yes, indeed. Rorgor, professional forager and brewer of potions, had accidentally tried to make a crown out of poison ivy. This, of course, was not his fault. He didn't have a ready reason why, but his gut told him that it could not have gone any other way, so it wasn't his fault. Still, though he pondered passing on the crown anyways, he realized that this would just lead Hissyfit to haunt his every step in a rage, or a Hissyfit. The incident did, however, give him a good idea, for all in the swamp knew that to grant a request of Nero's is to commit to 3 more requests and then 3 more after that. So, after all, he was a snake without boundaries and without limits on his needs. Instead, Rorgor trudged out towards the poppies that grew at the edges of Tendervale Swamp and wound a crown from them while wincing and moaning about his tortured fingers.
Oh my, such lovely tones to my fiery crown. Though I do find the choice of flowers to be distasteful, the snake said to Rorgor upon receiving his crown, for I am a powerful ruler with an iron will.
Rorgor knew better than to respond, and after another moment of examination, the snake finally put his crown on and vamped around the trail with such pomposity none could mistake him for a mere common rat snake. He began, as was expected, issuing further commands to passing birds, croaking frogs, and finally, poor beleaguered little Rorgor. However, as he talked and bobbed about with his crown, he began to slur and yawn until at last he curled up in a spot of sunlight to fall asleep. The poppy crown had done its work. Rorgor rushed on with a little light left for foraging and managed to find the nibbled remains of a grand willow woven into a beaver dam. These were known in his trade as beaver twigs, an essential ingredient to potions for inspiration. Specifically, he was planning to make a muse cordial, though if he could find more summer mint tomorrow, he would strengthen that cordial into an elixir of expression. The poet frogs of Windvale Grove would pay well for an elixir of expression. Back at his barrel on the swamp, Rorgor pulled out the bunch of beaver twigs and placed them into a red-hot brazier. This charred the bark into a soot he collected with a flute over the cooking area. The remains of the twigs were splashed with rainwater and ground down into a paste with a medium of dry millet. Finally, a clean corn liquor was mixed with a reduction of maple sap and set to a simmer. Then a teaspoon of paste and a smear of soot was added to 3 crudely drawn glass beakers, which were then filled with the sweet, warm liquor. It was a weak concoction, hardly enough to break more than a stanza from a stuck poet, but it would still sell to the right creature, and he knew it. After this was done, the day was well and truly gone. The cicadas were singing and the stars were glimmering. Rorgor thought once more upon his day, and then said to himself, in a moment of honesty and reflection, I shall go to bed now, and rise with the dawn, that I can catch up on my work tomorrow without a rush. He then danced and drank until the dawn, as he had before, assuring himself there was nothing he could do to prevent his sleeping in again anyways. And that was what we came up with on this, the 3rd anniversary of the Varietal Show, which was the first stream I ever did, was a Varietal Show. I consistently forget to do all this stuff all throughout the year, so I'm going to do it now. If you like the stream, like it, of course. But I kind of forget to do that, but I kind of just stopped doing that because, I don't know, whatever. But if you like my writing, that was sort of half the point of the stream, and I always forget to mention it. In the description below, there will be a link to Varietal Literature's website, varietal-literature.com, where you can find writing from me and some of my other friends who are writers. It's not as silly and fun as all of this. It's a more serious endeavors usually, though I do think they're fun. But nonetheless, if you want to read my more serious stuff, like a little novella I did about people that turn to trees in the winter and become human in the summer and fall, or spring and summer rather. There's that. There's 4 parts to that. There's a short story there, which is one of the ones that was published about surviving, sort of surviving surviving's the wrong word, but about a nuclear blast called Fission, which is probably my most popular short story, though it is quite old at this point. And then there's some really short little experimental flash fiction and stuff that I do there. So if you guys want to check out more of my writing, it's there. My more serious and edited efforts. If for some reason you feel compelled to help me pay for video games, or not video games, tabletop RPGs or anything like that, to help me cover some of the costs, that are associated with the stream. I do have a Ko-Fi link down in the description as below. Nobody needs to feel obligated to do that, but if you're able to and you want to, I do appreciate it. It's been a rough year for money, so otherwise I wouldn't ask. Yeah, if you haven't checked out other stuff on the channel, on top of Fireside Fairy Tales, which, you know, is a show I'm quite proud of in this one, there are some old 2 seasons up of Big Van Book Club. If you want to pick up the book, read the chunks of chapter, and watch how we read about them. Obviously, you won't be able to chat to us directly, and that's unfortunate, but the books are good. If you want a recommendation, I recommend my friend Joseph Gagawanaganasum's My Indian Summer. Is a brilliant book, not a hard read, and has won awards and so on since I did that stream. Those 2 streams, I think it was. But I recommend those. So there you go. There's all the plugs. Then maybe I'll just do plugs once a year. Thank you so much, Lizzie, for dropping by and saying hello. It was good to meet you. Thank you, Uncle Kitty, for great recommendations, and Jump Store as well. And I just remembered, sorry, I didn't forget the name. I just remembered Zombie Wolf was going to get stressed. I'm going to forget their fact. I'm not going to forget your fact. Zombie Wolf as well. Thank you for your contributions. And Witchery for dropping in the early part of the stream there. Hope things are going well for you after last week. You know, Genera, if you're out there, I hope you're doing well. Yeah. Oh, I see Lizzie Rose says, oh my god, happy birthday. Thank you, Lizzie. So Zombie Wolf says, random trivia. Nero delayed the Olympic Games for a year so he could compete. He won every game he participated, including the chariot race, despite being thrown from the chariot and having to leave. The reason why he still won was because he argued that he would have won anyway if he actually managed to complete the race. When he died a year later, he was removed from the list of winners. Boy, that sure reminds me of some modern political figures. And I scroll back down, and what do I see? Zombie Wolf saying, scroll up for my trivia. I don't think I've forgotten yet, but when I do, I'm sure I will be burdened with guilt. Jumpstore says, happy birthday and anniversary again, Ray. Thanks for a fun stream. Look forward to celebrating next year, hopefully with all of you again. I expect we will. Zombie Wolf says, thanks for 3 years worth of content. And happy birthday. Looking forward to 3 more years. Jumpstore says, real the dictator vibes. Yeah, I mean, it's like, it reminds me of, for example, Kim Jong-un being like winning golf in a way that couldn't actually be possible. I think it was like 10 holes in one or something. I was going to say something that's left my head. Oh yeah. Thanks for 3 years worth of content. Let's be clear. It was like just shy of 2 years worth of worthy content. And then like a year and a bit of me figuring out what to do with this. But nonetheless, check out my stories if you like my stories. Otherwise, thanks for watching the stream. I'll be back next week and we'll be back on to regular shows. But thanks everybody who's come in and given me your time and attention. I hope you enjoyed yourself. And of course, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Get out of my shop.